We're here at the blacksmith shop in the Pennsylvania Lumber Museum Lumber Camp exhibit, and it's quiet now, but normally during events we have a blacksmith in here demonstrating, and you'll hear the sound of hammer on anvil, which would have been commonplace during the Pennsylvania lumber industry, the historic height of that industry. The blacksmith was an essential part of a lumber camp. He was Mr. Fix-It, so these camps were remote. If something broke, you couldn't just run out to the store and buy a replacement very easily. You needed someone on site that could make and repair the tools that you needed to do your job every day, and that was the camp blacksmith. I'd like to thank Doug Firestone, who comes to many of the museum special events and demonstrates blacksmithing for us, helps us to keep those traditions of history alive, and really gives people a sense, a connection to that history when they can see it in action.
All over the Northern Tier sector, I visit the different museums and the different state parks, and I often do demonstrations. And I emulate what a blacksmith would have been doing, and it was like to be a blacksmith in the logging era. And I do that because that's the historic part of the area, and it's where I would have fit in if I'd been here at that time. I grew up around my uncle, who is a gunsmith, and he works on modern guns. And he would get a lot of the old flintlock guns in, and he didn't know how to repair them and repair the springs. So by the time I was about 14, I started making gun springs. I never considered myself a blacksmith then, but I had a little forge, and I had a little anvil made out of a railroad rail, and I would make springs for these old flintlock guns that were coming in and we were fixing them. I didn't see myself as a blacksmith, but I guess I was. And then I went to college. When I was in college, I was taking mechanical engineering, and I had a metallurgy class, and the professor thought it would be funny to show us a video of Donald Duck going through all the Iron Ages. And when it came to a colonial blacksmith, something just stuck in my head, and I just started blacksmithing and kept going ever since then. So what I do is I remove the old coke, the coke that I made from the fire the day before or the week before, and I move out and bust it up into little pieces along the outside. And the true trick to what I do is in making new coke, that's where it gets the heat. Without coke, or without making coke, if I was just burning charcoal or even wood, it would take me forever to get this stuff hot enough to work, and I may not even get it hot enough to hammer. So the true trick to doing blacksmithing is understanding the whole coking process. And what we do is I'll put the raw coal, the coking coal, into the bowl, into the tyrene, and I'll light that on fire. And once I got that on fire, I'll bury it with the coke from the other night, the last fire, and that'll start creating coke. And you can see it when it's generating. You can actually hear it like chugging, almost like an engine starting or a blower starting, and the boom, 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 and you can almost feel it, and I can smell it and I can hear it for long distances. And but once you get that coke going, it gets so hot that you can't help but get your work hot enough to work. A lot of things that are tough for beginning blacksmiths are that they want to work too fast on their material. And oftentimes now the modern blacksmiths use gas furnaces, but it takes a lot longer even with a gas furnace to heat it up than it does with coke. So you can get anxious and start working on the metal long before it's warm enough to work with. And if you work with it at those lower temperatures, you're actually destroying the internal molecular level of the iron and steel, and it'll just rot away and fall away within years after what you did. So I always try to make sure that my fire's hot and my tools are clean and my welds are clean. Brush them off and keep my shop free of scale. But that's the process. And basically I just hammer And it's something that I can see. I can look at a piece of metal and say, oh, well, that's a hook, or that's a spoon, or that's a spatula. And oftentimes I don't go out with a specific thing to make. Even if I have a specific thing to make for a customer, I often put that off just to hit something to warm up, to have fun with. I really like making the snakes, and I really like making decorative things, and just to kind of show the softer side of blacksmith. The tools would be made downstate and hauled up to the lumber areas, and as they were being worked every day, those things would break and they would bend and they would have trouble with them. So most of my work was repairing the tools that the guys were using, the axes, the cant hooks, to roll the logs, tools to keep their stuff clean and sharp, and I made tools for the small sawsmith, or the filer, I guess. And we made all different kind of things like that. And I would make the horseshoes. I wouldn't shoe the horses. There'd be farriers there, and but I would make the shoe, and then they would adjust the shoe to fit the horse or the mule, whatever they were using. So primarily my work was with logging tools and equipment. And then secondarily, we all had to eat, and we all had to have entertainment, and so I would make dice. I could make dice that the guys could play dice with, or I could make toys for the kids, little snakes, little things the kids could play with. I love to see all the appreciation and see kids' eyes widen up when I'm working, and they can see something be made. They don't, oftentimes I can hold a piece of steel and I can ask them what it looks like to them, and they don't know, and I say, well, it looks like a spoon, and I'll hammer it into a spoon. And just seeing in their eyes that, how they took that, especially younger kids, you can see almost how I feel in their eyes. So it's really neat to do this.